Hello, quilting friends, and happy Feature Friday, everybody. Thank you guys for joining me in my sewing studio today. We are setting up for a brand new quilt top, and we had a quilting friend ask if I could go over how I baste my quilt tops down to my batting and backing. So that is what we're going to work on today. I have my method of doing this. You may have your method of doing this. You may see somebody on YouTube doing this differently. Everybody has their own style of doing this. There is no right way or wrong way. It's just how it works best for you. So this is how I do this, how I'm comfortable doing this, and I am happy to share with you. You may take a little bit from me and put it in with how you baste your quilt tops down and may find a new method of how you like to do it. So we're going to get started. I'm going to turn you guys around and you can see what I've got set up here, and then we'll go ahead and baste my quilt top down together. So on my Butler display, all I've got laid out here is my safe area, and that is just my whole frame. So I went top left corner all the way back there and front right corner all the way over here. And now you guys can see that I need to clean up my shelves. So I just did my whole frame so that I had my space set on here so I can use my features, because I actually will skip into my home feature because I like to use my channel locks that are available on the mid and top of the line robotic system to do my basting of my quilt top down. I'm not really great at stitching straight lines. We all know I'm bad at free motion quilting. That goes for straight lines too. So I actually use my horizontal and vertical channel locks to go ahead and stitch down my top and my sides. Looking down here, I've got my backing all set up. We've got a little bit hanging out on each side. I've got my batting laid down, and I've got my quilt top here. So if I flip it up, I've got just a little bit hanging out here at the top, not a ton, a little bit on each side, but I was pretty close when I made this backing because I actually used leftover strips. If I let y'all peek under here, I used leftover strips from this jelly roll that I had that I made the top out of. It was just a little jelly roll quilt. It's not very big. I used the leftover strips in the backing and just added a little bit of other fabric to it. So I'm pretty close on my backing and batting, not too much extra. So I'm just going to fold my top down a little bit. And where I start is I actually start by stitching a straight line across the top of my batting to hold my batting down to my backing, and then I use that as an anchor point for my quilt top so that I know I'm getting my top on square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my machine to the edge of my batting, find where I kind of want to start. So I'm just going to come down maybe about an inch, inch and a half from the top of my batting just to give me some space. And here I am going to engage my vertical channel lock, which will allow me to stitch a horizontal line. I'm keeping my stitches at my 11 stitches per inch. I'm not doing big basting stitches. I just keep my stitches the same because, if truth be told, I tend to forget to change my stitches back, and then my quilting's all big and crazy. So I'm going to go ahead and start here, and I'm going to stitch a line across. I'm going to go ahead and just put you guys up on the tripod, and hopefully I won't make you too dizzy because I'm actually going to turn you on your side too so you can see the whole quilt top here. So let's see if I can do this smooth. Okay, there we go. So you should be able to see all of my batting here. So I'm on the end here. I have my channel lock engaged. I'm going to do just a quick needle up, needle down to pull my bobbin thread to the surface and pull that aside so I can get that bobbin thread up here. And I'll cycle my needle just to lock that in place so I don't get any stretching. I'll turn my stitching on my handlebars, and then I can run across my batting. And because I have my channel locks in place, I know I'm getting a perfectly straight horizontal line across my batting that is going to hold my batting to my backing. But that's also going to give me a really nice starting point to line up my quilt top so that I know it's square across the top from the beginning. And once I get to the end, I can turn my stitching off. I can turn my channel lock off, and I can just do my tie off and bring that bobbin thread back up to the surface. And I'll cut my little tails as well. So I'll take you off the tripod so that you can see up close, because I know those stitches kind of sink into the back. Okay, so here we are, and now you can see my line of stitching. I have this kind of royal blue thread, and that is a lovely straight line all the way across my batting. So this is going to start my anchor point for my quilt top. I am going to flip my quilt top up, and hopefully I've got things pretty close here. So I'm gonna have to scoop my quilt top up just a little bit. And what I wanna do is line the edge of my quilt top up with my horizontal line that I just stitched. That way I know my quilt top will be straight when I go to anchor that down. So I'm gonna kind of just nudge this around a little bit to kind of get that in place. And once that's in place, where my top edge seems to be matched up all the way across, I'm actually going to get some pins and pin this in place so it doesn't move when I go to stitch this down. Now I'm not going to pin this within an inch of its life because I want it to have a little bit of give, but I use my flower head pins, which are the same pins that I use to pin my backing to my leaders. And I just go ahead and tuck a couple pins in. They're far enough away where I know I'm not going to stitch on them. I just tuck some pins in across my top area here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that really quick, and I'll be back with you in a second. All right, so I've got my pins in place. I just put a good handful of them in to anchor this quilt top into place. You can see that I've got my blue line of stitching here, so I tried to just get the edge of my quilt top lined up with that. So now I'm ready to stitch my quilt top down. So I'm going to use my channel locks again so that I get a nice straight line across the top. I'll probably come down 1/4 of an inch because that's going to end up in my binding or get trimmed off anyway when I go to square this up, just to make sure that I'm on top of my fabric and that I catch all of my edges. I'm going to put you back on here, and I'm going to just put you this way this time because I thought the horizontal might have made people a little bit sick in that direction. I don't know. I experiment with my camera the best I can. I'm not a great videographer, so we'll try it this way this time. So I'm starting on the left side of my quilt. I almost always go left to right as much as possible. I'm going to start right on the edge of my quilt top, and like I said, I'm just about 1/4 of an inch down from the quilt top. I'm going to needle up, needle down so that I can pull my bobbin thread up to the surface. And I will cycle my needle just to anchor that in place there. And then I'm going to engage my vertical channel lock again, that way I can go horizontally, so I've touched that on my display. I'm going to turn the stitching on my long arm, and then I'm going to very carefully come across the top of my quilt. I don't go super fast, I do take my time. I like to kind of anchor my thumb and my fingers on either side of the needle, but I do have my big scoop foot on here, so my fingers aren't getting anywhere close to the needle. So I'm extra careful that I'm not going to stitch on my fingers. I'm not stretching my fabric. I don't want to stretch my quilt out of squares, so I'm being very careful just to keep it in place. I did not stretch it at all when I pinned it down, so I'm just being as careful as possible. I don't want to, stretch my fabric or anything. I'm at the end, so I've turned my stitching off. I'm going to cycle my needle. I'm going to turn my channel lock off, and that way I can move my machine in any direction I want to pull my bobbin thread back up, and I can clip my thread. And now I have my top anchored down, and I will bring you guys off of the tripod and back around, and you can see that now I've got a little line of blue stitching here, and I am pretty squared off. You can see the line of stitching on my batting, and now there's a line of stitching on my quilt top. So my top is now basted down, and I am comfortable with that. I'm going to leave the pins in for the moment because I'm going to do my left side first. So I'm going to just make sure that my batting is nice and smooth underneath my quilt. I try to make sure it's smooth when I put it on the frame in the first place, but sometimes things get a little wiggly as I'm moving my quilt top on. I'm just going to make sure my quilt top's smooth and everything looks pretty good, and I'm going to start over here. So this time, instead of using my vertical channel lock so I can go horizontally, I'm going to use my horizontal channel lock so I can go vertically. So I'm going to bring my machine in place, and I'm going to come about 1/4 of an inch in on this side because, like I said, when I square up and then put my binding on, that stitch line will disappear for me. I'm going to just make sure I'm in line here. I'm going to engage my horizontal channel lock. I'm going to bring my needle up, needle down, and I can just scoot out of the way and pull up that tail here. So I've got my bobbin thread and my top thread. And then I'm going to see if I can do this one-handed so you can see up close. It might not work out and I might get all crazy off the edge of my quilt, but I'm going to try for you guys. So I've got my channel lock engaged. I'm going to turn my stitching on my handlebars, and I'm going to come nice and slow down the edge of my quilt. I'm going to try to keep it as smooth as I possibly can. I tend to go slow down my edges. My top is usually not the hard part. It's usually the sides for me, and this does take a lot of practice. And I get as close as I can to my roller bar where I'm comfortable stopping. I'll stop. I'll cycle my needle, and I can push away and pull back so I can pull my bobbin thread back up. I'll do another needle cycle to pull my bobbin thread up, and I will clip those threads. Okay, well that wasn't too bad one-handed. I think I did all right there. So now I've got my left side anchored. I'm going to do the same thing. I'll turn my channel lock off. I'll come over to the right side of my quilt. Find where I'd like to be. Again, I try to come about 1/4 of an inch in. So that looks okay. I'm going to engage my horizontal channel lock so I can go vertically. I'll bring my needle up down so that I can grab my little bobbin thread back here and pull both of those to the surface together. And got them both right there. I'll move back into place at the very top of the quilt. I'll start my stitching on my machine, and then very slowly I will pull my machine towards me. I'll smooth as I go. I don't stretch, again, in either direction. I don't want to stretch my quilt top out of square. I want to make sure it stays the correct size as I'm going down. This is where that measuring tape that I had on my frame on the last quilt, that is helpful. You can kind of get yourself set on your first row, and you'll know where your markers are, and then you can kind of have that through the rest of the quilt as you roll. I'm going to turn off my stitching, turn off my channel lock, and bring that to the surface here. And bring that bobbin thread back up. This is really hard to do one-handed, y'all. You challenge me. Grab my little scissors and cut that off. And we are anchored down on the other side. So now I am free to take out my pins. Always remember to take out your pins. You don't want to start your edge-to-edge design or anything with your pins in your quilt. And mine are the same color as this fabric, so I probably would have forgotten to do that and would have never seen them. So make sure you take your pins out. And now you've got your workspace ready to go. So that is how I do my basting, but there are many different ways to do it. So use whatever method you're comfortable with, whether you freehand your top and your sides, whether you use rulers, channel locks, maybe you pin, maybe you don't pin. That is your choice on how you're comfortable. Maybe you use the basting stitch on your machine and you like your stitches far apart so you can easily pull them out. Maybe you like to use your regular stitch setting like me. Basting your quilt down is really a matter of preference and whatever you're most comfortable with. So try different methods, find what works for you, and have fun with it. Thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see you real soon.